Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, our special Thanksgiving weekend holiday edition, as we delve into the anxieties and conflicts that come with family get-togethers. We'll have tips on how to handle the busy weeks to come. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly, right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state, with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I am joined, as I am every week, by my co-host, longtime clinical and Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Doctor, welcome.
Great to be here, Frank.
All right, here we are. The countdown to Christmas, Hanukkah, the new year is underway. And if the election is any indication, not everyone is on the same page, as it were. So today, we're going to lean on Dr. Bart Rossi, the psychologist, to help you and your loved ones get through what's to come. And we have a lot coming at us. I mean, we had an election. A lot of people have unplugged a little bit following the election, but it's still simmering underneath. So first question, how do you handle that difficult, Uncle Joe or Uncle Charlie, who's going to bring his political views to, the Christmas table or the holiday table?
Well, Frank, we all have perhaps more than one person in the family, or could be many people in the family, and they want to bring their agenda, to the dinner,
right,
or the meeting, a family meeting. So if there's one thing that I think is most important, it's learning how to deflect. You have to think about in advance what you're going to do when somebody brings up some far right-wing stuff or far left stuff, or they don't believe in the moon landing, or they don't
conspiracy
believe you're going to have to learn how to deflect, and you can be pretty good at it. Some people are very good. Someone could say almost anything, and they can get them to think about something else, the Yankees or the New York Giants or something else.
How do you do that?
Well, you have to think in advance, be prepared, because Crazy Larry is going to come at you in this manner. You probably know that. So rather than just wait for it to happen, it would be good if you planned and thought about, well, here's what he's going to say. He's probably going to bring up that about the election. He's probably going to do something else. He may go into all kinds of gyrations. So what am I going to say? How am I going to deflect? Think about it in advance so you get him off of what he's saying. And you could say, hey, listen, Larry, I understand what you're saying, but for today, I just like to talk about the Yankees. I know you're a big fan. Maybe he's a fan of the Giants, or maybe he's the Marlins fan. He could be Tampa Bay fan. And, I know you're a fan. I just don't want to deal with anything political or stress-related today. I just can't deal with the stress of anything today,
Well, what about the relative who's going to come in and gloat, okay? Let's say you are a supporter or were of Kamala Harris, and the Trump guys, he's just waiting for this. He's going to arrive. Uncle Charlie's going to arrive at the table, or your friend Larry, and he's just going to gloat there at the table.
Well, again, we have to get back to this whole big picture of being good at deflecting and changing course. Easier said than done, of course, but you can practice, and you can think about that's going to happen. That's one of the things that's going to happen. People are going to gloat, they're going to say things, but that might be coming, so you have to say.
Should you rehearse?
So yeah, you can actually rehearse, and you could practice what you're going to say to get off of it. So like, say, listen, I know you feel good about the election, or you don't feel so good about the election, but here's my thinking for today. There's a lot of stress here lately with the political scene. We're going back and forth. I'm doing all kinds of stuff to get ready for the dinner. How about we talk about the Yankees? They need to make some changes. They lost in that series. You got to be able to do that. And some people
you're going to deflect and redirect.
Yes,
as much as you can.
Yes, you can.
What about the person who is just generally difficult, not connected to politics, but just generally a difficult person?
Well, again, planning is the big thing here, planning to know who that person is going to sit next to, maybe talk to somebody else in the family about, what's going to happen here. We have Crazy Larry coming, and if I put him at the end of the table with the kids, he's going to make all the kids start screaming, I mean, that can't happen. So you have to think ahead and plan not only what you're going to say, but look at different behaviors and where things are going. I mean, I don't want to make a big mountain, a big Megillah. That's another psychological term.
That's a psychological term. We've determined
a big Megillah about this. But really, you ought to think about it, because things could go south pretty quickly if you don't.
You make a good point. The seating arrangement is key. Maybe you
Yeah.
put the names so your friend Crazy Larry or Uncle Charlie is sitting next to somebody that they can
And also
connect with.
talk to other members of the family, because
Yes.
some of the other members know that, Crazy Larry's going to be
If
problematic.
he's not a family member, well, you know what? We will continue the discussion
Yes.
in the next segment. But right now, it's time for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to talk a bit on cognitive behavioral therapy. What it really means, and it's important now that we're talking about stress and anxiety. Cognitive behavioral therapy, what it really does is it helps people think differently. Once they start thinking differently about a particular situation or what's causing a lot of anger, frustration, or even depression, they can start modifying their behavior. Once behaviors change because of the way you think, people start feeling better. And if you want to help somebody psychologically, emotionally, especially during this time, somebody who's really good, a psychologist, for example, who's really good at cognitive behavioral therapy, extremely helpful in dealing with stress-related issues, depression, anxiety, and how you should actually start to think differently so you can solve problems and work on your own behavior.
See a professional,
Yes.
is what you're saying.
Well,
if you can.
and with somebody who knows cognitive behavioral stuff.
Interesting. All right. Thank you, Doctor. Coming up, we again lean on Dr. Rossi to explain how we can take care of ourselves so that we are not overwhelmed by the holiday season when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. We are taking a quasi-Thanksgiving weekend break from all the politics as we use this show to help you deal with all the craziness that comes with the holidays. In the last segment, we discussed how to handle that difficult family member or friend who might upend your festivities. This segment, we wanted to talk about how to take care of yourself in anticipation of all this.
Right.
Okay, so I'm hosting a party. I'm dreading it, but it's my turn to do it. There's your crazy friend Larry. There's Uncle Charlie who's going to cause a problem. What can I do in the weeks or days ahead just to get myself centered and calm?
Well, Frank, you said in the weeks and days ahead. That's key, because what you really need to do is plan. If you're just going to try to do the cooking and worry about serving and just do it as it happens, that's not good. You need to plan ahead, give yourself plenty of time, and also try to do some exercise. Try to think of things that help you mentally as you're doing this stuff weeks in advance. Think of mindfulness. That is, as you're planning and doing things in advance, how you're enjoying doing it, how you're really looking forward to doing this over the next coming week or two, and you prepare and you kind of enjoy doing that. And mindfulness in terms of how you're going to enjoy that day. You're the host. You know who's coming, well, family members. You want to have time to enjoy, but think in advance what you're going to do, how you're going to interact, how you're going to socialize, what you're going to do. But I also think it's important to be ready for that day. Like if you're training for a fight, if you're training for an NBA, your first NBA appearance, you want to be in top physical shape and mental shape. Well, maybe not quite that bad, but you really want to try to be rested and capable of handling a stressful event.
I've heard this before.
Yeah.
And people are watching this are probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Yeah, easier said than done.
Right.
I mean, I got to shop. I have to get the food. I have to make sure the kids are okay. It's a busy month, December.
Right.
Okay. Where am I going to find time to sit down and meditate and become mindful? And I've heard this again and again. Be mindful, meditate if you can. Where can we find that time in this month? To me, it's just not going to happen.
Well, Frank, if you can't find time to look at mindfulness, if you can't find time to exercise and take care of yourself, that's a problem by itself. You have to make those decisions in advance. You're right. People say, well, I don't have time for that. I can't do it. Right. You have to make time, or you need to have a longer planning period so you could get things done. I mean, I've talked to some folks who have all of the cooking done well in advance so that they can enjoy the day. And a lot of times they, in fact, do enjoy the day.
Again, that's easier said than done.
It is.
I think a lot of people are saying, look, here's my MO. I dread it. I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to take 2 or 3 days off and just relax instead of doing it backwards as you recommend.
Well, cognitive behavioral therapy, again, if you think differently about the event and plan it and try to enjoy it as best you can, you'll make the most out of it rather than the least out of the event. So that's what you got to do. You have to think that way to make it work.
You mentioned something that's kind of curious, exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find time to exercise. Is that really important, or do you need to get your mind in a place, and that's more important?
Well, they both go together. You know, if you exercise and you feel pretty good, you're probably helping your mind and body. And, you know, as you're exercising, you can relax, you learn how to do different exercises, and you always feel better. A doctor once told me, he said, I never heard anybody say that going to the gym regularly was something bad. Everyone has said to me, you know, I really like going to the gym. I get a lot out of that. He said, I don't hear people saying, oh, I went to the gym, but I was lousy. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, mentally and physically. So you ought to look at that.
Well, what if you plan it exactly the way you're supposed to plan it?
Yeah.
Okay, you exercise, you're mindful, you meditate, and then something happens, and you've seen this.
Yeah.
You've seen the craziness. Something happens at the last minute. Uncle Larry wants to, or should say, your friend Larry wants to bring his friend Joe, who's even crazier than Larry. Hey, he's a friend of mine. He has nowhere to go. Now, instead of 10, you're hosting 11, maybe 12.
Right.
Yeah, and that happens at the last minute. I mean, do you do namaste, a little yoga? What do you do at that point?
Actually, Crazy Larry shows up at the dinner.
Right.
Not only thinks about it, shows up with
Right.
somebody like his friend.
Well, you make a good point, too.
you know-
Do you not invite Crazy Larry?
Oh, no.
Your...
I mean, you have to have
All right, so
your
Crazy
uncle
Larry's there, but Crazy Larry says, my friend Joe wants to come as well, and he's not saying this, but he's just as crazy as I am.
Well, that could happen. He could be saying that, but what happens if he even shows up with Crazy Louie, his buddy?
Without saying anything.
Without saying anything. So you're right. It could be shocking, you know. That's hard to prepare for. I mean, that's
Yeah,
hard to do.
That's what I mean.
But you have to know Larry, and you're going to have to be ready for almost anything if he's that kind of person. But Frank, you can't make it more difficult. I mean,
Well, it is difficult.
You're asking difficult questions for a difficult situation. I mean, we have to get our arms around it some way.
In
you know?
your distinguished career, have you found, and we have about a minute left, have you found over the years that people come to you after the holidays and say, I need to sit down and talk with somebody?
Yeah, sometimes they actually come in and say, I really want to engage in some kind of therapy because it's me. I know it's me that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do too much. A lot of women in particular, a lot of guys today, they try to do too much to please the family.
Right.
They know that it's on them. They've got to change and not be nasty, of course, to their kids or anybody else, but they've got to change their behavior, modify things so they can make some sense out of it all.
Okay, so where should you send the bill for this therapy today?
We're gonna send the bill to you.
All right, thank you, Doctor. You might be dreaming of a white Christmas, but if you're in Florida, it likely will not happen. But it can get stormy. When we return, we'll take a look at who enjoyed the sunshine this week and who got caught in the rain in our always popular segment, Sunshine or Showers, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. We are not currently in the rainy season in Florida, but that does not mean it doesn't rain, of course. So every week we examine the atmosphere to determine who is in the sunshine this week and who needed an umbrella in a segment we call Sunshine or Showers. Okay, we start with you, Doctor. Who, pray tell, this week was in the sunshine?
Well, Frank, I'm putting psychologists and all the professionals who are extremely good at delivering cognitive behavioral therapy. Over the years, this has developed to be a really significant approach to helping people with their psychological issues and problems. A lot of times, self-hypnosis is even used with your, the thoughts of actually changing behaviors. And a lot of techniques are there so that the therapist can help people and make changes. And so all those folks who've done research and have made a big difference with cognitive behavioral approaches, they're in the sunshine for me.
And this is important, especially during the holiday season,
Yes.
because this is the season that is the most stressful season.
Yeah, and I highlight this because it works. It is very effective treatment.
Said as a psychologist. All right.
So who do you have?
Who do I have in the sunshine?
sunshine.
All right, I got the National Retail Federation. It's predicting that holiday spending will increase. We talk so much about the economy being poor, but holiday spending will increase as much as 3.5%, they predict, this holiday season, to a whopping, take a guess, how many billions, millions of dollars?
I don't know. Billions.
$989 billion in spending, gifts, and so on this holiday season. That's fairly robust for an economy that a lot of people say is not buzzing. It is. It's humming along very nicely. So I'm going to put the National Retail Federation for coming out with those numbers in the sunshine this week.
Okay. All
All
right.
right, and you know how it is. You know, you're strolling along, you're singing a happy tune, you got your towel over your shoulder, you're heading toward the pool, and all of a sudden, clap of thunder, showers. So with every sunshiny day, there's a showery day. So who is in the showers for you this
Frank, in the showers, I have some of the governors, some states that, in view of everything that's happening, they are involved in budget cuts when it comes to mental health. In Texas, it's somewhere between $250 million to $500 million that's being cut from mental health services. In Florida, more than $250 million apparently cut. Apparently, there are budgetary constrictions, budgetary issues.
Right.
But yet mental health is noted, you know, when it comes to shootings or any particular problem. Mental health is front and center. But yet what happens? Well, you know, it's cut a little bit. The stigma is still there, you know, and a lot of folks just don't want to prioritize mental health. I hate those cuts.
That is interesting. After every mass shooting, inevitably they'll say that the person had mental health issues.
Yeah.
And then it's never mentioned again.
And then
how do we solve that
and the same
problem?
people who say that are involved in budget cuts on mental health.
All right, so that's in the showers this week.
And for you, who do you have?
Listen, I'm putting Hollywood. I'm putting Hollywood in the showers.
Okay.
Because about this time every year, they do some sort of a Christmas story that involves Santa Claus, and they've taken these benign characters, Snow White and the Joker, who was just a fun guy on Batman, and they make them evil. I have a list of some of the movies, past and present, including one that's this season it stars The Rock. I forget the name of it, but they've kidnapped Santa Claus. Here are some of the names of these movies that Hollywood has produced. Violent Night, Christmas, Bloody Christmas, Santa Isn't Real, Krampus.
Oh, my God.
And Christmas Blood. Some of the movies. You know, you got to leave Santa Claus alone. From all indications, he's a heck of a nice guy, but somehow they have to make Santa Claus evil. Hollywood.
Were those movies set up for Crazy Larry?
Maybe. He's going to be talking about him at dinner. All right, we're going to take a break now. When we return, a commentary by yours truly titled, Let's Be Frank, When Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. Many of us of a certain age remember when politics was just part of the background. People disagreed, but it did not dominate the conversation. Today, that is all anyone wants to talk about. I, and I'm sure you, have come into contact with acquaintances and even strangers who within the first few minutes of the conversation need or want to know whose team you are on. As in, are you left, right, or moderate? Which party are you? If this didn't matter 20, 30, even 50 years ago, why does it matter now? Polite people will accept you for who you are. Argumentative and politically obsessed Americans watching the all-news channels 24/7 need to know now. The chances that you will agree 100% with a friend or neighbor on a myriad of the issues facing our nation are remote at best, so why bring it up? I've said this before, but it's worth repeating, especially as we begin the holiday season. It is in the best interest of the news media, of which I've been a part for over 40 years, to keep you in suspense, to make you fearful and anxious. It's what draws you to the TV set, and stations and networks know when you're anxious and afraid, you're more likely to watch. More of us watching means more eyeballs, better ratings, and you guessed it, more money for the networks. The ratings on all of the all-news cable stations have actually plummeted since Election Day as people unplug, and good for them. That doesn't mean you shouldn't watch ever again, but taking a break from all the chatter is healthy. Too much of anything is bad for you, or in the case of news, can separate you from your feelings as you view each encounter with a new friend or neighbor as a potential battleground over politics. Before you know it, New Year's Day will be here. There is so much more than we agree on than we do not. So I would urge everyone watching right now to make a New Year's resolution to take healthy breaks away from the nonstop news channels. Take a walk, read a book, talk with an old friend, but please, please, let's all resolve to give politics a break and focus on the important things in life. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the fine people working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.